Good morning, everyone. Welcome to October at UUCM. I'm the Reverend Kevin Tarsa here this morning with Worship Associate Jeff Stone, and I thought you might enjoy seeing people today, especially with our new theme of cultivating relationship. So Jeff Stone is our Worship Associate. Rain Thibault is one of our readers, as well as Connie Wright. Bob Miller's been behind the scenes supporting some new folks. Carmen Riley is our host in the building this morning. Jenny Dewey is one of our readers. Andy Dooley Miller back there under the tree operating sound. And Siobhan way back in the corner doing a really wonderfully skillful job of navigating our audiovisual this morning. Beth Carroll is our chat host, as she does so beautifully each week. And at the moment, Jordan Thomas Rose is behind the camera, and he'll be getting ready at the piano for the song to come. For those of you who are willing to have your cameras on right now, I invite you to turn your cameras on, and if you haven't already, and to wave to one another, to put it in that gallery mode and see who's here, and take a moment to wave and see who else has joined this morning. It's one of the ways we can connect in a simple way, just seeing us in our homes, in our spaces, our faces this morning, maybe different than last Sunday. This month's theme is cultivating relationship, and it felt important to do that up front with a little visual connection. At the end of the service, even and especially if you don't usually do so, I invite you to hang around for a little bit, even for just a couple minutes, and again, say hi to other people. There are many new folks, and you can begin to put faces to names and voices, perhaps, to names as well. With that, let's enter, rejoice, and come in. We're working on getting our camera ready for Jordan. Our opening song will be Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. With that, let us enter this hour together, knowing that it will be a joyful day for that reason.
Hi, I'm Jeff Stone, and I'm your worship associate today. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains. That's a mouthful, isn't it? You can tell that name wasn't put together by a marketing team, and that's a good thing. We have a real interest in authenticity here. That's because although we do like to attract new members, we aren't interested in becoming the next big thing or a mega church or having the trappings of success. We simply want to do the work of a religious community that cares deeply about the world, about our place in it, and about each other. When you join a new community, like this one for instance, you do so probably hoping to cultivate new relationships with people who have something in common with you. What we have in common here is not about whether we believe in God. You might believe in God, you might not. It's about promoting values or principles like justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. What we have in common is not about skin color or ethnic similarity. It's about welcoming all skin colors, ethnic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. What we have in common is not about our particular sexual orientation. It's about welcoming all sexual identities and ways of loving. Of course, normally being here would have meant entering a room full of people. Unfortunately, we are still not back to that yet. So we make do with Zoom, doing the best we can under these trying pandemic circumstances. So I'm pleased to have you in our space, even if it is virtual. Make yourself at home. I hope you feel comfortable here, but I also hope you will feel challenged enough to reflect and learn and come again.
Come, gather, not into a common space, sharing a physical closeness we long for, precluded by wise choice. But come, gather into this common time and a common space. We need to be together. We yearn for connection. We hunger for the familiar faces of friends, the sound of shared voices, proclaiming who we are, where we are going, that which resonates with our hopes, our dreams, our values. Come, gather. We are here in this space, made of all spaces, and we share our becoming in this moment.
The Nevada City Rancheria was one of 48 rancherias illegally terminated in the 1950s by the California Rancheria Termination Acts. Most have been restored. The Nevada City Rancheria, not yet, but find out more next Sunday.
In our commitment to be in right relationship with the descendants of this area's indigenous people, we place a small basket of black oak acorns on our altar each week. In doing so, we acknowledge the Nisenan people are still here among us today, though they are nearly invisible, and their story continues to be excluded from history. We understand we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the near genocide of their people. As residents or visitors in Nisenan land, we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people, as well as the campaign to restore tribal sovereignty through federal recognition.
Our opening words this morning are sung, words by David Glasgow, Here Together.
We are here together in this holy moment, and we're grateful for the winding road that brought us to this place. We are here together in this holy moment, and we're grateful for the winding road that brought us to this place.
Let me tell you the parable of the spoons. There once was a mystic who was fascinated by the idea of heaven and hell. One day, in a deep meditation, the mystic came face to face with the creator of the universe. And of course, their first question was, what is the nature of the relationship between heaven, hell, and earth? And the creator of the universe clapped its cosmic hands, and immediately the two were in a room. In the center of this room, there was a round table, and in the center of that table, there was a roaring fire. Over the fire, there was a huge cauldron of a seething stew with a smell so enchanting that the mystic was drawn closer to the table, but not too close. because all around the table, there were sickly, unhealthy, groaning people, each of them with a long spoon, long enough to reach the cauldron in the center of the table, but not long enough to feed themselves. And they all struggled and they tried hard, but they never quite managed. The mystic didn't need to ponder long to understand that this was hell. Instantly, the creator of the universe clapped those cosmic hands again, and they were in a different room, except it was the same room. So much of the room was identical. There was the round table, the roaring fire, the cauldron with that delicious smelling stew in the center, and around it, people seated. But these people looked healthy. They looked happy. In fact, they were laughing and telling each other stories and jokes. Some of them were singing songs. Some of them were just listening attentively. And they also had those same long, overlong spoons. But as they dipped out of the stew, they didn't trouble themselves trying to make that long spoon reach back to their mouths. They simply reached across the table and fed someone else. And when they were hungry, they had the humility and the clarity of mind to open their mouths and let themselves be fed. The mystic didn't have to ponder long to recognize that this was heaven. And the beauty of this story is that it isn't just about heaven and hell as an afterlife idea, but it shows us how we can choose to experience heaven or hell here on earth. And as a matter of fact, this story inspired this song.
No one gets to heaven alone, to heaven alone, to heaven alone. No one gets to heaven alone. We get there side by side, side by side, side by side, side by side. We get there side by side. No one heals the world on their own, the world on their own, the world on their own. No one heals the world on their own. We're healing side by side, side by side, side by side, side by side. We're healing side by side. No one does the work on their own, the work on their own, the work on their own. No one does the work on their own. We're working side by side, side by side, side by side, side by side. We're working side by side, side by side. Side by side, side by side. We're healing side by side, side by side, side by side, side by side. We get there side by side.
No one gets to heaven alone. No one heals the world on their own. No one does the work all alone. We get there, we're healing, we're working side by side. I love Leah's spirit and energy. Recognizing the truth in Leah's words and music, even those of us solitary types, we remind ourselves when we gather that we are not alone. especially in this time in which it is so easy to feel alone, to feel disconnected, to feel aimless and untethered even. Maybe you know already, because you're a person who stays in touch with your heart, or maybe this is your chance this week to stop for a moment and notice consciously what's been calling out to be felt and recognized in you, whether what's surfacing is painful, tender, joyful, all of that, bittersweet, gratitude-filled. One of the ways we cultivate one-on-one relationships is to offer each other this back and forth sharing of more and more personal disclosures, gradually revealing more and more of who we are and what we care about. Our weekly Joys and Sorrows ritual is a public variation on that interpersonal practice. Whether in our silent walking forward and placing a stone in the bowl of water, or these days through typing into the chat, we are invited to share and to serve as witnesses to each other and what's happening in our lives. Some find these kinds of disclosures out of place and uncomfortable in a Sunday service, while others count on them to connect, to share a burden, to multiply a joy. I invite you to stop everything else for a moment, to search your heart, accompanied by the music, to notice and to pay attention to what you find there in this moment, and to listen for what it may be asking of you this morning and in your life. If it will serve you well, I invite you to type into the chat a piece of what you are carrying, remembering that you'll need to press return or send to get your note to the rest of us. No matter what else we do in these next moments, may we hold each other in care and love and compassion. The people here in the room will drop some stones into the bowl of water. I invite you to search your heart in the quiet, gentle music. Our prayer this morning comes in the words of Sean Parker Dennison. Spirit of life and love, in these times when so much seems difficult, help us remember that we are not alone. We have each other. Help keep our connection strong and remind us that kindness, generosity, trust are antidotes to fear. Help us remember that our hope and our power grow when we are faithful to our deepest commitments and to each other. May we rise up to do the work of love again and again. Rise up to do the work of love again and again. Amen.
Community means strength by Starhawk. We are longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned. we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing. A circle of friends. Some place where we can be free.
Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing. A circle of friends. Some place where we can be free. In this continually unfolding pandemic time, our September theme of embracing possibility seemed a natural start to this congregation year. What else is available to us but to embrace the possibilities before us? We move now from embracing possibility to cultivating relationship, each theme with an action attached. First, embracing what is in order to see ways forward, into our active investment in relationship by cultivating. It's not a complete switch, but rather a drawing on one spiritual practice to inform the next spiritual practice, embracing possibility and cultivating relationship. Can we let our recognition of what has been lost and what has not been lost inform the current possibilities available in and through relationship? The fact that our theme's invitation is to cultivate relationship rather than relationships implies an invitation to cultivate our ability, our capacity, our willingness to relate, period. And it leaves wide and open the question of with whom or what we are called to cultivate a relationship now. Individuals in our lives, groups, the divine, reality, truth, ourselves. Over the course of this month, we'll invite you to consider your relationship with yourself, our community's relationship with the Nisenan tribe, our relationships with one another here, and even our relationships with those who have died. As someone taught me, it's never too late to work on a relationship, even if the cultivating is one-sided at this point. I'll share that I don't feel at all an expert in cultivating relationship, in general or for you in particular, for your style of relating. In fact, many of you are my role models. You're marvelous teachers for me. I watch you invest your attention, your vulnerability, your honesty, your precious time and resources in ways that connect and invite trust, and that express caring, even when doing so is inconvenient or downright challenging. You inspire me. In truth, we're all in a laboratory here together, a laboratory of relationship cultivation, experimenting whenever we interact, whenever we choose to try to connect, to try to share any aspect of our lives with others, whether we're face-to-face or one-on-one in a meeting or in a service with other people, whether it's here or on Zoom, whether it's in an email or a letter. Everywhere our lives intersect, every time we interface in any way, we're cultivating, or not, relationship. Religious community is a place wherein we're called to practice and hone our relationship skills. And in our tradition, that practicing, that spiritual practicing, is with people who have, in theory, committed to do the same, even when it's tough. That's our primary promise to one another as Unitarian Universalists. Our primary promise on the horizontal plane, anyway, of religious community, while each of us works out our personal understanding of what life and the world and existence are about for us, the vertical dimension of our lives. When I think of role models for relationship in general, I think of people in my life who have again and again been both honest and kind. That's the pairing to which I aspire, to be both thoroughly honest and thoroughly kind, which often means swimming upstream against the current of Midwestern niceness I inherited, which subordinates honesty to a surface harmony and conflict avoidance. That's just going to be a lifelong project. I expect you can think of people in your life who you feel cultivate relationship well and deeply, and whose behavior toward you might highlight skillful ways to cultivate relationship. Those people who model possible tools at least for cultivating relationships, since the ways we relate will actually vary. About 15 years ago, I discovered the Enneagram, and with it, a whole bunch of awareness about myself and how I relate. The Enneagram is a framework for understanding human personality based on how people interpret the world and manage their emotions. The Enneagram identifies 9 primary and interconnected types, in which I am a 5. To which some of you who know the Enneagram will say, "Oh, no wonder." And others will say, "Oh, of course." We 5s are characterized by a desire to understand the world so that we can navigate it safely and without it taking too much of our energy. We can never know enough. We always want to know more. And we also are characterized by a rich and expansive inner life, which is where we dwell much of the time, and where we're more likely to focus than on the outer world, including relationships. By the way, 5s are drawn to personality typing systems like the Enneagram. What Enneagram resources helped me understand about myself is that I carry on relationships internally, even when I'm not otherwise interacting with someone. I live and relive and feel conversations and experiences long afterward. In fact, I often enjoy or suffer them more in the internal slow motion replays afterward than in the original experience itself. That's where and when I process my emotions most fully, as I'm alone and as it stirs inside me. So, I might not see or talk to someone for months or years, but meanwhile, not only am I continuing to feel connected with that person and warm and engaged, the relationship is actually continuing to grow and develop. At least inside of me, it is. So you can imagine the hazard here. The relationship I'm experiencing may or may not match what someone else is experiencing, what the other person is experiencing. I realize that my deepest and longest friendships are with people who share that attribute. After a 3 or 5 or 7 year gap, we both still feel connected. And we not only pick up where we left off, we actually pick up at the place to which our relationship has grown in the meantime. And of course, this doesn't work for everybody. In one of my significant relationships, as we were first getting to know each other, the other person would call most evenings and talk for 2 or 3 minutes, usually while doing something else, like washing the dishes or driving somewhere, and then close the conversation to move on to the next thing. I was confused by this, asking myself, what was that? For me, the conversation had ended before it actually got started. Why would a person call and talk for only a few minutes? Was the person not wanting to go any deeper into this relationship? Were they just being kind or Midwestern nice? I might not call a friend for 6 or 8 years, but when I do, we drop everything else and we talk for 4 or 5 hours at a time about life, the universe, and everything. With the same person a little farther into our developing relationship, I suggested going on a hike. So I was filling my water bottle, getting significant set of snacks prepared, and stuffing my day pack with layers of clothing so I'd be ready to adjust to the temperature as needed on the hike. In contrast, this other person took a drink of water, put on a lightweight coat, and was ready to go. Now, there is in that story a layer of over-preparedness on my part, I admit, but by hike, I was imagining a 3 or 4 or 5 hour hike. They were imagining a 15 to 20 minute walk down to the end of the road and back. My friend was fed and cultivated many relationships beautifully through ongoing, frequent, brief, and often playful interactions. Connection often was important to that person. It didn't need to be for long or for deeply, but it needed to be frequently enough. And little by little, that consistency of interacting in those short ways developed strong bonds and a large pool of shared experience. It made for many long-term and valued friendships. I am fed most by long, deep, meaningful interactions. They don't need to be frequent, but they need to be meaningful if a relationship is to be cultivated. That tends to make for very few but very close and deep friendships. However, if I limit myself to that form of cultivating relationship, I miss out on a lot of relationship possibilities. And I've come to understand and to appreciate the value of lighter, briefer, more frequent engagement. It's just not my natural starting place, so I have to be conscious about it. Now, I share all this in part to clue you into how I operate here well into this pandemic life, and it's also here to let you know that although you and I may not have spoken recently or seen each other for ages, I'm having a great relationship with you. And I may need a reminder that you need more frequent contact or a different kind of contact or connection than I'm offering. I share this also, though, to point out that how we cultivate relationship will vary. We'll have different needs and styles. For some, it may be having these small, frequent connections, shallow but wide, that will best cultivate a relationship. For others of us, it may be more occasional connection, but substantial in both duration and meaning, narrow and deep. For some, it will need to be playful and fun, and others will need to go right to speaking from the heart about the deepest things we know right away. There's more than one way to cultivate relationship. And that cultivation metaphor is great for those of us who garden. We know that different plants have different needs for light and space and soil and nutrients and frequency of watering. Some do well in very small containers. Some need to be in the ground where their roots can run wide or deep. Some need protection from the frost, to be brought inside when temperatures are freezing. Others are cold hardy and are just fine outside all winter long. Some need watering twice a day in the heat of summer to keep from drooping or dying. And some can go for a week between waterings just fine. And all of them need some amount of care and tending in order to survive. So, what about you? What about you? What kind of cultivation do your relationships require? That's my first question for you for the month. My invitation to notice what it is that you need for your relationships to develop and to flourish. I encourage you to spend time with that question. And it's paired, of course, with an invitation to notice what others need for their relationship with you in order for it to develop and flourish. As with the love languages, we tend to speak the relationship language that we know rather than the relationship language that others understand. My other question, the obvious question for the entire month, is with what or with whom do you want or need to cultivate relationship at this point? What relationship is missing or in need of repair or ready to be strengthened and celebrated? With what or with whom do you want or need to cultivate relationship next? The experience of the pandemic has us understanding many of our relationships differently. Some relationships have fallen in importance. Some have risen in importance. Some have appeared. Some have reappeared. Some have disappeared. Some have languished. Some are in desperate need of watering if they are to survive. Some need just a little fertilizer or a little additional light to blossom. If you were to embrace the possibilities that your heart recognizes as the possibilities that will most deeply animate your future, what relationships would you invest in? If you listened to what your heart says about what will animate your future, what relationships would you invest in? They will not happen of their own accord. They will require cultivation, meaning an investment on your part. Investment and some risk, whether that relationship that comes to heart for you is with individuals, with groups, with God, with spirit, with yourself, with your mortality, with the world as it is, or with this congregation. Science and religion converge at this point. At least science and our Unitarian Universalist religion, among others, converge to teach us that thinking we are anything other than relationship is an illusion that will keep us off track. We are entirely of interconnected, interrelating parts at every level of scale, from the minutest quantum particles to societies, to the earth, to the cosmos. We have no choice about being in relationship, about being relationship. However, there is a range within that larger scale within which we can choose to cultivate certain of the relationships of which we are made. Starhawk wrote of her vision of community as some place where we can be free. Free not because we're independent, but because strength joins our strength. Because we are interconnected, interrelated, and we know it. Because there are arms to hold us when we falter. People to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Where a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter, even on Zoom. Where voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Whether in this room, whether online, whether on the telephone or through an email, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, a circle of consciously cultivated relationships. Even us Enneagram 5s come to realize that no one gets to heaven alone, in this world or in any other. No one heals the world on their own. No one does the work all alone. We get there side by side. So, which relationships will you cultivate now? And how? You don't need to have the answer this morning. May this month together offer you encouragement, offer you opportunity, offer you support to find your way. So may it be. So may we be.
%25 of our offering this month will support Habitat for Humanity, which brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. Habitat for Humanity envisions a community where everyone has the opportunity to have a safe, decent, affordable place to live. Since we are not passing a plate in person, giving in other ways is vital to our ability to sustain the work of our community. Thank you for your generosity. Here is Allison explaining the different ways you can give.
Although we're not passing the basket in person, your generosity remains essential to our ability to sustain the work of our community. There are several ways to contribute. You may text an amount to 833-579-0483, give via our website at uugrassvalley.org, via PayPal at paypal.me/UUCM, or mail to UUCM 246 South Church Street, Grass Valley, California, 95945. Thank you.
Let us dedicate this offering to our acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth.
Thank you to everyone who was part of the service this morning. Jeff Stone for being our worship associate, not only this Sunday, but the next couple. Beth Carroll for serving so beautifully as chat host. Siobhan Boylan for doing all the things that we throw at her on a Sunday morning. Andy Dooley Miller on sound. Bob Miller for his setup and mentoring and adjusting when one of our cameras suddenly stopped. Linda Siska for the beautiful setting this morning. Jordan for music with Julie's voice in the mix this morning. Our readers, Jenny, happy birthday again. Rain and Connie, thank you. Cameron for being here as our host in the building. And behind the scenes, Corey Silva helping find and invite readers, and George Dunstan who captures who's been participating in the service. I invite you to join in a closing song together, Gather the Spirit. We gather the Spirit not only for the morning, but also for the journey ahead.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate flames will kindle one flame. Witness the misery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now again. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store. Gather in hope and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in strength, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in awe, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again.
Our closing words are sung this morning just as the opening words were words for the end of a time together, again by David Glasgow.
We have spent time together, and these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. We have spent time together, and these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. And my prayer for you is a peace that's true until we meet again.
I invite you to join in this community benediction that helps us remember that we're not alone between the times when we see each other or speak to each other or gather. Together, let us carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Jeff, I invite you to extinguish the chalice. Thank you. The book group meets today, discussing the book The Holy Man, in case you're interested, at 1 o'clock. Entry point is an invitation for people to learn more about this tradition and this congregation, and it works whether you're brand new and just kind of curious or whether you've been around for a long time. So if you're interested, please contact Dawn at membership@uugrassvalley.org. We'll have one session this Tuesday. We'll have a couple other opportunities next week. So let Dawn know, and we'll see where people's time works out well. I invite you to fill out the survey, if you haven't, members and friends, about the potential Stop the Mine task force that's working to oppose the Rise Gold mine. So check your email if you haven't seen that. And those of you who enjoy singing meditation, be ready to join us on Thursday evening. We'll see you next Sunday for the service with Shelley Covert, spokesperson for the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe, and Frank Lawrence.
And get ready. If you'd like, and you haven't done so already, you can turn on your camera. We'll be unmuting everyone shortly so you can say hello. You'll be invited to join a breakout room for conversation, and you can stay in the large group or come back to it at any time. And many of our breakout rooms are empty. So if you want a one-on-one conversation, you're definitely welcome to use that for that. Here's a list of today's breakout rooms.